I noticed early on, as I traveled the country, I asked the same question, Connie. I would say, how many of you in this room have a mentor? And about 15% of the hands would go up. And these would be leaders of almost every industry. And then I asked the next question, how many of you are currently mentoring someone else? It was consistently less than 10 to 12%.
That's Julie Kantor, the founder and CEO of Twomentor, a high-impact training and development company focused on talent strategies for a diverse workforce. It's her mission to help bring out the best in people by building real human connections through mentorship. But helping people connect with others is not as easy as you would think.
I think companies make an assumption that mentoring is happening. It is not necessarily happening. People don't exactly know how to build or start mentoring relationships. People might not want to impose on someone else, or they might feel they're too busy.
So how do you break through and make a mentorship program that truly works for both the mentor and the mentee? Welcome to the Strategic Momentum Podcast, the show where we share tips, stories, and advice from progressive leaders on how to break through business and career inertia so you can better understand the business of work. I'm your host, Connie Steele. Julie Kantor has more than 20 years of workforce development experience delivering keynotes on mentorship and entrepreneurship around the globe. She has provided mentor training, strategy, and diversity efforts to world-class companies and organizations like Verizon Wireless, Marriott, and Cisco. In addition to being the author of several publications, Julie's been featured on CNN, Washington Post, Forbes, and AT&T Women Who Inspire. She's been honored by the White House for her career in entrepreneurship education and was recognized by Smart CEO and 15 Leaders We Admire and the Brava Hall of Fame for top managers. Today, her company, Twomentor, works with clients to build sustainable inclusion mentoring and sponsorship initiatives to drive employee engagement and retention. In this episode, Julie walks us through how companies can step up their mentorship programs and what so many people are getting wrong, which is preventing them from fully reaping the benefits of a mentor-mentee relationship. But first, we'll hear how her early experiences in the workforce led to the development of her approach to mentorship today.
I think that my career journey has been one where I followed my heart a lot. And I'll tell you why. I grew up, Connie, in Washington, D.C., and I was raised by a Holocaust survivor. My father escaped to America in 1956. He came here without a cent to his name and really built an amazing life for himself. And, when he came here, he really wanted to go to college, and applied actually. He was bagging groceries at Giant Foods in Friendship Heights. And he ended up applying to about 10 colleges, got turned down by 8 or 9, but got a full scholarship to Harvard. My dad's story had a profound impact on me and my career trajectory. He taught me to be a self-starter. He taught me that you can build a life from tragedy and pain, and you can create something amazing. And he really has done that. He's been really one of my heroes. And so I ended up in Boston, going to college there. I started working for Inc. magazine, and I had an incredible life-changing experience. Every year, Inc. magazine, which has the Inc. 500 conference. It's a conference for the 500 fastest growing companies in America. And I went to the Inc. 500 conference as an employee, pretty low on the totem pole. And I ended up listening to the keynote speaker, and his speech would change the course of my life for the next 20 years. He talked about working in a corporate hierarchy working for Ford Motor Company. And then one day he had gone to New York City and he got surrounded by some kids and they wanted some money from him. And it ended up in a violent altercation. He had already started an import-export business. He loved being CEO of his own company. But this altercation with kids got him to look at what was going on in the school system and kind of confront his fears. And he realized that kids in poverty in this country were not learning really anything about business except how to type. This is the early 80s. So Steve Mariotti built a mini MBA curriculum to teach kids, especially from low-income communities, how to start and operate their own small businesses and how to help them get off welfare, transcend, and exit poverty. And being the daughter of a refugee, I was so blown away that this guy was teaching the American dream to America's youth, that we live in a country where you can own a business, you can go to college, you can build, because my dad couldn't do those things in his country. And from that experience, I ended up joining forces, I ended up volunteering, I ended up building the Boston region with my mentor, Mike Caslin, and wanted to give my all to this organization, Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. I was smitten. And we ended up training 650,000 kids in 12 countries.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was an incredible journey and of building. And as a young woman, I had to move. I had to kind of override myself, my own fears, my own insecurities that I was only 22. And who was I to be? I became the executive director and on salary after 7 months of volunteering. And who was I to run a region and manage people 2 to 3 times my age? But it was an amazing experience, and one that planted the seeds for what I'm doing now. It planted the seeds that someday I would be building and scaling a company.
You've certainly had this amazing journey and this passion for finding purpose early on and making an impact, coupled with this entrepreneurial mindset. So, how have all of those shaped how you approach specifically what you do now and how you do it?
Well, so when I was at Nifty, we started something called Adopt a Class, where all these entrepreneurs wanted to help us and wanted to mentor inner city kids on their business plans. And I ended up founding the Boston region of Nifty, and then I took over the greater Washington, D.C. region, helped us go into Baltimore, Philly. And then when I got a little bored after, being there so long, they shipped me off to India to start the programs there with an amazing husband and wife team. And I think that what I saw was that entrepreneurs, people really wanted to come in, wanted to mentor kids. So we started training them on how to do that. And flash forward, as I was building Twomentor, I started noticing that companies had really good intentions, but most of them did not have mentoring initiatives. And mentoring, there was a huge business case that we can talk about later for mentoring to really create a more cohesive, empowered workforce. And so I think that passion for entrepreneurship, bringing leaders in, seeing the goodwill of people helping people, and then seeing how absent that was from our workforce today became my next mission. Let's get people in the workplace, whether they're working in nonprofits, associations, universities, or corporate America. Let's help people bring out the best in each other and mentor them. For me, I've had now about 120 interns and take very seriously the responsibility that these interns that come and work with me, like Mike Caslin took me under his wing, I now, as a leader, take others and help onboard them into the workforce. And as a mentor, as a role model, that is a great responsibility and a great opportunity for us all to grow and learn from each other.
Julie's humble beginnings and hands-on experiences teaching and scaling a business instilled in her this constant desire to pay it forward. She was already a volunteer, but how else could she give back? Being the beneficiary of really effective mentorship, coupled with what she learned at Nifty, where she saw the power in this type of approach to support others, she saw mentoring as a viable outlet to enable people to reach their potential. So in 2015, her experiences and ideas culminated in the creation of her company, Twomentor.
Yeah, I joke around a little bit, but if you take the word mentor, mentor, and you put two, like TWO, in front of it, put those two words together, two and mentor, right together. You put the word women and men into mentoring. It's the only way to get the word women into mentoring. And I joke, it takes two to make things go right. It takes two to mentor. So a lot of plays on words. And then someone said, I see the word omen in there. And I said, yep, that's going to be the name of the company. So when I started the company, my older brother called me, and he's an amazing leader. He runs an organization called the Center for Social Leadership. He had just got his PhD in Spain. And he called me and he said, Julie, I am running a leadership conference in Chennai, India. I know you're starting your business now. And the intent then was I realized, again, that companies had no infrastructure. And so I'm like, who's training people to be good mentors? Who's training our younger workforce to be good mentees? And that was really where my focus was, to help companies stand up mentoring initiatives. And it still is to this day. But my brother, he said, come with me to Chennai, India. Help me with this conference. I'll buy you a plane ticket. I know you're totally poor, Julie. You're just trying to, no more paychecks. You're scrappy startup. You've got your torn up jeans and your Mac. You are a scrappy startup. And why don't you at least come to India? And I was like, you know what? I can work from anywhere. I've got my own business. Yeah, I'm going to India. And so I went to India, and he had me do a few sessions, and he was working with 70 extraordinary nonprofit leaders in Chennai, India, in the South. And I ended up building what became our bestseller. It's called the Mentor Road Trip. And Connie, it's a flash mentoring experience. Or think speed dating. And being married for 20 years, I never got to try speed dating. It wasn't around then. So speed mentoring. And it's basically, we created an experience that over an hour, we take the spotlight off the stage, we pull it back, and let every single person in the audience try on mentoring for size and go on a journey together, a road trip. So one example could be, Connie, you're my mentor. We get into our car. I'm driving. We've got our espressos, and it's a beautiful day. And all of a sudden, I get a flat tire. And that flat tire represents a business professional challenge that I'm having right now, big or small. I share with you the challenge. And guess what? You dealt with something similar 2 years ago. We talk for 5 to 7 minutes, and then we each go on and meet our next partner and continue the journey. But this time, maybe it's driving in reverse. If we could go back to our 22-year-old selves or 25-year-old selves, what advice would we have for them? And we might do a peer-to-peer mentoring. So we started doing that. globally. After that, we started getting requests from Dubai to Women in Technology International and Watermark. We started doing flash mentoring and then recruiting people to be mentors and then training and certifying them and then helping companies build and stand up sustainable mentoring programs. So that's really the heart of what we do. We just had our 4-year anniversary as a company.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Another thing that I think is going to be really important when you build a company to go back and mentor other female entrepreneurs on that experience, because it can be a time that can be a bit isolating, as I learned. And so that's also really important to me personally.
Well, it sounds like what you've really done is reframe the way you can mentor people and deliver immediate value based on this flash mentoring approach. Because I think most people have a perception or an understanding of how mentorship would work or the process of that. And it's a really interesting way that you've, taken a innovative approach to doing it and creating such incredible engagement.
We need to make mentoring fun, and we need to teach companies and leaders the value proposition. The big question I ask almost every audience as we do keynotes and flash mentoring and mentor trainings and leadership trainings, the big question is this a nice to have or a have to have? And we are about to release some white papers on this and some of the most extraordinary data that's out there on mentoring. But one of the things, because a lot of companies don't know and a lot of people don't know and shy away from mentoring, I noticed early on as I traveled the country, I asked the same question, Connie. I would say, how many of you in this room have a mentor? And about 12, 15% of the hands would go up. And these would be leaders of almost every industry. So I would ask, let me rephrase that. How many of you have someone you can go to on an ongoing basis for professional advice? And then 25 to 30% of the room would raise their hands, even in the HR field, even directors. And then I asked the next question, how many of you are currently mentoring someone else? It was consistently less than 10 to 12%. So what I realized is I think companies make an assumption that mentoring is happening. It is not necessarily happening. People don't exactly know how to build or start mentoring relationships. People might not want to impose on someone else, or they might feel they're too busy. But the flash mentoring and the types of kind of dynamic exercises and mentor trainings, we have it's called the Mentor Road Trip Action Guide. You've got to give people the tools and the dynamism to realize that it's actually fun and it's not hard to implement, and you're not asking for an 8-year commitment. You're looking for a 6 to 12-month commitment, and help people try it on for size, see the win-win, and get started.
Providing mentoring experiences that deliver a positive, sustainable impact is a challenge. Many corporations are simply missing the mark, which in turn limits their ability to realize their workforce's potential. So it's really driving all of that. Why are companies blind to these holes in their programs, and what can they do about it?
When I meet with leaders, especially CEOs, there's a common adage in our industry, which is a lot of times when leaders climb the ladder, they forget then the ladder was there. And people kind of raise up to the top and they get involved with the right charities and they have their kids and their home life and they're working long hours and they're focused on revenues and profits. And they sort of forget that their kids, their grandkids, their nieces, their nephews, their employees' kids are now on the ladder. And our millennials are driven by being mentored.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, kind of mentor us or we're out of here. They want to know that we're focused on their learning, their leadership, their development, and often that purpose, knowing that people care, takes precedent over paycheck. I don't want my daughter to go work somewhere where she does not have someone to take her under their wings and mentor her. There was a study done in the engineering department of Sun Microsystems. And actually, a lot of companies are cutting their workforce, but they're going to be hiring engineers and people with the science, technology, engineering, math, creative talent. So there's going to be a lot of changes in the workforce. So Sun Microsystems had a mentoring program in their engineering department. People could choose whether or not to formally be part of it. Guess what happened? 5 years after the program, Wharton and Gartner studied it and found that people who elected to mentor and help other people, those people got promoted 6 times more than people who didn't help. The mentees, people who were not afraid to ask for help, they got promoted 5 times more. Retention rates were 20% higher for the mentee and mentor cohort. And according to Society of Human Resource Management, when you lose an employee, especially an engineer or a technologist or a great salesperson, the estimated cost to replace, the cost of turnover is 1 to 3 times salary. So Sun Microsystems, now Oracle, saved millions of dollars in retention of their employees. So we need to share the value proposition. We need leaders at the top to be the executive sponsors of the mentoring initiatives. We need HR, diversity, people to be willing to put some structure behind it or bring on a company like ours to build it and run it. We call that managed mentoring. But it's really imperative that people have clarity around the business case, track and evaluate the success of their programs, and then keep them going and growing.
Do you think some of the challenges for those who may have put a mentoring program in there is that nobody there even had an understanding of what the right structure would be? So somebody was assigned to create it. So they went ahead, maybe read some articles and put in a design that wasn't the right one. And subsequently, as a result of the program not being set up in the right way, that other elements failed, such as not having the right matches or not ensuring the participants that got matched really knew how to help one another in the most beneficial way.
Yeah, I think that there's major mistakes that well-meaning people make in standing up a mentoring initiative. A really big one is they don't train the mentors or the mentees. They literally throw people together and say, you two will be working together, and make a huge assumption that people know what they're supposed to do with each other, that people know how to mentor. So one thing that we like to do, we did a flash mentoring, a keynote for a major insurance company. We had people opt into the mentoring program. They filled out applications where we looked at their skills and competencies, their passions, hobbies, and matched. And then from there, we provided 6 trainings for mentors and for mentees, gave them what we call the Mentor Road Trip Action Guide. And then with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and troubleshooting hours in between, we stood up a 9-month initiative where people were calling us. What do you do if you reach out to your mentee and she or he does not return your phone call? What do you do if your mentor keeps canceling appointments? How do you handle things? Mentors would get frustrated because if the mentee did not have tangible goals, like what are we working towards? And for the mentees, we tell them, are you mentorable? Are you open to feedback? This is your career trajectory. You're asking someone to help you with your career trajectory. And so what is it that you want help on? What are your goals? What do you want to learn? You should be responsible for scheduling meetings and just all kinds of little nuances that can become very important to the long-term success. And then getting the mentees and the mentors to weigh in and, make any pivot with any changes needed for the next year so that you can start building cohorts and people start coming to know that this company is not only building a mentoring initiative, but believes in a mentoring culture. And leaders from the top championing that is crucial.
What I take away is that what companies aren't necessarily doing is putting in a strategic plan, or really building this almost strategic planning exercise as well for all the participants involved. So it's laying out that strategy for how you develop the right program that will accomplish the specific goals that it's set out to do. But then once that overarching plan is created, for those that are looking to participate, each of them need to also have their own specific strategic plan in order to define what they're looking to get out of it and be able to operationalize it in such a way that there is this beneficial outcome. And that seems like it's not something that's very intuitive.
No, you really do need to have that blueprint strategy at the beginning. And what we're seeing is that the companies we work with are usually solving for one of 5 things. They're solving for, a multi-generational workforce. You've got 5 generations in the workforce. How can people learn from each other through mentoring, either traditional or reverse mentoring, where younger people that are more skilled, for example, in technology or collaboration tools, might be able to train people that are older and did not grow up on technology. Number 2, they're solving for knowledge transfer. As baby boomers retire, who do they pass the baton to? And how are they transferring knowledge, and succession planning? Number 3, people tend to mentor people who look like them. They tend to mentor in their own likeness. And a lot of studies show that. And mentees tend to choose mentors in their own likeness. So we help stand up inclusion mentoring initiatives where people mentor and sponsor more diversely to drive a more multicultural workforce. Women, especially women in STEM fields, there's special nuances and challenges and opportunities to focus there and build mentoring, with ERG groups. So I think that there's, onboarding interns, millennials, Generation Z, using mentoring as a selling tool for recruitment, that come work for our company. And we actually will be investing in you. And we have a mentoring program that you can access on day 1 or month 3 or as an intern. So those are some of the reasons that companies need to stand up mentoring programs and then figure out, are we doing a bottom up or a top down program? And what's the main things we're solving for?
For a mentorship program to be successful, you can't use a set it and forget it approach. It takes strategic planning and execution, continuous feedback and response, and active engagement from participants. As Julie said, there are 5 generations in the workforce now. each with different goals and expectations at various stages of their career. You need to have systems in place to address their concerns in order to develop a true culture of mentorship. So be mindful to have representation across these generations versus running the risk of having it reflect a narrow audience. Diversity is key, as Julie will share.
Well, I talked to a company called Perishing, which is a BNY Mellon company, and they have a pretty diverse executive leadership team. I talked to the president, and what he said is we were diverse, but we were not diverse in age. So they stood up a reverse mentoring program where each one of them got a millennial mentor. And the retention rates of the mentors, the people who mentored, because they felt valued, they felt they had something to contribute. The senior leadership team took them very seriously and valued, and they put a lot of great structure into it. And I think that led to, I think it was over 90% retention. So I think that, again, understanding the business case, and then really, we like to come in, and we literally come in with a box, and it's called Mentoring in a Box. And we have building blocks, and we set up with our clients a structure broken down by month of what we're building and what we actually build a physical structure with them of what the program is going to look like, from evaluation to the flash mentoring to the trainings. And then if we're going to do some senior leadership work on sponsorship, this is a critical also for the diversity field. We say a mentor speaks with you, and a sponsor speaks about you behind closed doors and champions you to others. So we work with leaders on this sort of, how are you building a living legacy through mentorship and sponsorship? So we might put some of that training into the year-long plan, but we stand it up. And then who's responsible? A lot of companies, they have someone. I spoke to someone this week, and she has like 1,800 people signed up in a mentoring program. There's no training. There's no mentor action guide. People signed up and they're not matching. And they're not finding matches. And she's very frustrated. And it's a major, major renowned company. So we're trying to help her to not lose this incredible 1,800 people, not lose, but get it done right.
So in that case, it sounds like there is sort of this misunderstanding that just by saying that, hey, we want to put together a mentoring program, certainly there's a lot of inherent interest, but just by someone putting bodies together, folks may perceive that things will organically happen, and without putting the necessary discipline and planning, programs, training in place, it really isn't going to get the right traction that's needed to ultimately drive towards the outcomes that the organization is looking for and the participants fundamentally are looking for. So
yeah, exactly.
Are there things too that and you had mentioned this a little bit earlier, but are there things you feel millennials and other mentee groups are also doing wrong that inhibit them from lending to the success of any type of mentoring program?
I think there's something that we haven't discussed that is particularly impacting our younger workforce, millennials and Gen Z, that needs to be discussed, that maybe we're all doing wrong. And that is, I was watching television, maybe this was over a year ago, and it was Good Morning America, and a ticker tape ran across my screen, and it said, America's Loneliness Epidemic. And so being curious, I went and Googled it, and I found that Cigna had commissioned a study with UCLA, and a professor and his team studied 20,000 Americans. And what was extraordinary was 54% said they were lonely, that they did not have someone that they could talk to. And the other thing was the hardest hit was not the elderly. The most lonely, the hardest hit in their study, what were our 18 to 24-year-old. So I think, and we can just all see it, it's very obvious as we go to restaurants, as we pass bus stops, we're losing the human connection. People are connecting, but on technology and everything sort of instant gratification. So mentoring, I think, is critical to help people close their computer screens, unless they're using Zoom, and close their computer screens, make eye contact, and structure a relationship where people can help each other. The World Health Organization in the last 8 weeks announced that there is a burnout epidemic in our country, and that that burnout is now a disease. It's really hurting people and their abilities to function, to get up. The corporate burnout. And I was reading in Harvard Business Review, a researcher named Emma Sapala from Yale. She said that one of the leading causes of burnout is lack of human connection. So as we look at our younger workforce, as we look at ourselves as entrepreneurs, as families, we are losing the human connection, and we're falling victim to some technology addiction. And I think that creating and prioritizing human connection is going to be critical to our wellness and emotional well-being. And I think CEOs need to see curbing corporate burnout and loneliness as part of their job descriptions.
I think that's such a great point to bring up, because I feel that with this ongoing trend of leveraging technology to create efficiencies in the workforce and trying to extract as much value as companies can from people, folks are defaulting to looking at technology as the solve for many things, because they're trying to automate stuff to make it faster and to make it be better. And, no matter what, everything can be solved with some form of technology. But the reality is that in a lot of instances, you're dealing with people. And if you're not able to find, as you said, that human connection, really be able to motivate and inspire, people at the end of the day, they make up your company. They make what runs, and they drive the success. And if you don't focus on that versus tools, you're never going to be successful.
Yeah. I'm part of the Entrepreneurs Organization, and I was talking to someone very successful. We had lunch, and he was giving me some mentoring advice. And one of the things he was saying is that a lot of companies are planning on curbing their workforces over the next years. Again, less employees, more technology. And that will they want to invest in mentoring? And I reflect on what Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn said, that, they hire people and young people just leave. And I think it was Reid Hoffman that said, when someone asks, what if we spend all this money and resources training them and then they leave and we're basically just training them for our competitors? And his response is, well, what if we don't spend the money and the resources in training them and they stay? One of the, I think the Association for Talent Development had a study on managers, and managers that went through management training showed a 24% increase in productivity. But when they provided mentors to those managers, it was an 88% increase in productivity. So it's just, we really need to do the right thing. We really need to look at, at Davos, the top world, business leaders that are coming together and saying that we're not just here for shareholder profits. We're here for our employees, for health, well-being, good cultures, and from an engaged workforce, we will have productivity, we will have revenues, and we will benefit from an actively engaged workforce versus what Gallup talks about a lot, which is the actively disengaged workforce right now, which is about 68% are disengaged.
Not a good statistic at all.
No, 32% engaged.
While technology has enabled teams to work faster, more efficiently, and hire talent from all over the world, it has come at the expense of real human connections that are vital to our well-being. With this loneliness epidemic spreading and engagement decreasing, mentorship becomes a powerful tool to bring people together and get them motivated and excited about their work. But for some company structures, there's another challenge: distance. With a growing trend toward a remote workforce, sometimes getting together face-to-face with a mentor regularly just isn't a possibility. So what do companies do in this case?
So while you have organizations that may be scaling down on full-time employees, well, there's a couple of different situations, I'd say. There could be organizations that are scaling down on full-time employees and hiring consultants, the gig economy. So it's one dynamic. But you also have the other dynamic of more remote workers where they are located no matter, across the country or across the world. How do you fundamentally mentor them? Because they also will tend to skew millennial and they need it as well. So if they don't have the in-person interaction, how do you then provide those resources, opportunities, and tools to support that workforce?
Sure. No, that's a great, great question, Connie. And I'm laughing a little bit because I'm hearing more and more people that are over the age of 40, over the age of 50, over the age of 60, and they're saying, I'm a millennial. There's just more.
Yes, it's true.
I'm a millennial. Like, why are we, that if based on the description of, so I nobody really loves the labels, but I think personally, I'm a millennial and a bit of a Gen Z, Gen X, sorry. So I think that, it's important if you're part of the gig economy, it's important if you work remotely to plug in. And again, you need to own your mental health. You need to own your career trajectory. So there's a couple ways to approach it. Number one, see if your alma mater offers a mentoring program. I'm a Simmons grad from Boston, and they have a spectacular online system now that they're using where I just signed up as a mentor and a mentee. Number two, check with your employee resource groups and HR at your company to see if they have an official mentoring program. If they do, get trained, have them call me, I'll train you all, and feel comfortable creating remote mentoring, but use a video tool like Zoom, Google Chats, FaceTime. Do not do it over text. It's much better if you can, and try to meet at an annual conference or somewhere once or twice a year in person, beginning, middle, and an end. So the third is there are groups, associations. One of my favorite clients is AVIXA, which is the Audio Visual Association. And they have, I think, over 30,000 members. And we offer mentor trainings, mentee trainings, monthly webinars, in-person sessions to create a community around mentoring. And the AVIXA team helps people that are in the audiovisual industry match with each other. And we do some matching through the Flash Mentoring as well. I was just in Toronto, and we went to four states where we're doing these Flash Mentorings and utilizing it with a little extra time to help create the matches. So these are people that are work for different companies, but willing to mentor and be part of that. So I think it's important to join an industry association, but check with them if they have a mentoring program.
Wonderful. And are there any other thoughts that you have that are important to kind of build the right programs that align to the desired goals and objectives and have the lasting impact they want?
Well, I'm kind of stuck on this notion of millennials and younger people getting the mentors that they want and they need. So maybe just to be empowered to go to the CEOs of your company, your chief learning officers, your HR leaders, and have them reflect on, did they actually have a mentor? Did they have a mentor in their life? And what was the impact on their lives? And a lot of people will tell you that they did have a mentor and how important that was. And then could we stand up a program in our company? A lot of companies that call me, they're getting it from employee surveys that their employees want a mentoring initiative. Some it's driven by one major company that has a brand like Starbucks. It's the board. The board of directors is mandating it. So stand up for what you need. Also, women, we need to mentor and sponsor. We need to, all of us, we need to figure out how do we pay it forward? Can we both be a mentee and a mentor and build these incredible chains? Can we get, maybe we need mentors that help us in different ways. So maybe we build a little board of mentors around us. Someone who mentors us, like I might have someone for entrepreneurship, someone for marriage, some for living your best life, health and well-being. I might have a mentor that can help me scale my company and a couple of sponsors who will champion me and my company to potential clients. So these relationships are gold. We've got to transcend networking and build meaningful connections. And also be reciprocal. If you're asking someone for help, are there ways you can help them too? These relationships end up being far more reciprocal than we realize. So hope this is helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I take away that it's really thinking about this almost network effect. So it's certainly thinking about the we versus just me, understanding all of the different relationships that are influential to helping you be successful and creating those necessary connections such that you have this broader network to support you in the end.
Yes, you said it perfectly. Absolutely.
So, what advice would you impart on your younger self?
Oh my goodness. My advice to my younger self. Wow, that is such a good question. I think my advice to my younger self would be that failure is neither fatal nor final. If you're going to take risks in life, and just the amount of change is the constant. So we have to become more resilient, and we have to be willing from time to time to fall on our faces without shame and understand that it's a stumbling block. We got to get up, we've got to dust ourselves off and celebrate small wins, because life is hard. And there's a great quote we used to share with kids at Nifty, and it says, inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. And so we really have to be working on ourselves and live and figure out for yourself, or I have to figure out for myself, what does my living my best life mean or look like? And there's many dimensions of me and things that make me happy, and my role as a wife, a daughter, a mother, a friend, an entrepreneur, my relationship with myself. And sometimes you need to reach out and get mentoring help or help in general.
That's great advice. Now, to close, any last words of wisdom?
One of the big things that I've learned, which ties to what I shared earlier, is you're your biggest obstacle. Sometimes you have to override yourself and not let fear get in the way. Fear or what other people think, we say fear, fantasized experiences appearing real. There's a great book called The Four Agreements, and it talks about doing your best, don't make assumptions, and don't take things personally. People are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. They're thinking about themselves, or they have their own things going on in their lives. So we often get hurt or upset. Our expectations are not met. But we need to understand that people live a bit in their own reality, and we have to just always do our best and try to keep our sides of the street clean. And so, follow your heart and go for it.
Great inspirational words of wisdom. And finally, what's the best way listeners can connect with you?
Oh, wow. I think the best way that listeners can connect with me is send me a text. And I'll state it's 202-431-5016. Again, it's 202-431-5016. You can always also email me at julie@twomentor.com.
You are the first guest I've had that has actually suggested people text you. I love it.
I'm delighted to connect with any of your listeners, Connie. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being on the show today, Julie, and providing such insightful perspective on how to build a compelling and sustainable mentorship program.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun, and the questions were incredibly thought-provoking for me, a lot to reflect on. So thank you, Connie.
Creating a mentorship program is no easy task. But if done properly, the benefits to your organization and employees outweigh any investment you put in. You have to set specific goals, objectives, and strategies based on the wants and needs of your workforce. It's that blueprint for everyone involved. And think about how you will facilitate diversity in that plan. Be specific on the activities that everyone should be responsible for. Mentors and mentees need to have clarity around their roles and the program expectations up front, so they're fully prepared to engage and participate. And at the end of the day, it's all about building meaningful connections and reciprocation. How can you help the person helping you? Finally, creating any kind of culture, including a culture of mentorship, starts at the top. Buy-in from the leadership team is crucial to the success of your program, but follow-up from everyone else is what keeps it going. Thanks for listening to the Strategic Momentum Podcast. To connect with Julie, send her an email at julie@twomentor.com or text her at 202-431-5016. If you've liked what you heard, please share this episode with a friend. And we'd love for you to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To get show notes, links, and more tips and advice from this episode, you can visit us on our new website at strategicmomentum.co. On our site, you'll not only find all the content from our past episodes, but we'd love for you to contribute to all the great work and career advice we've collected over the years. And don't forget to follow Strategic Momentum on Facebook and Instagram. You can also join the Facebook community by searching Strategic Momentum in groups. I'm Connie Steele, and you've been listening to the Strategic Momentum Podcast.